Okay, gang. Last week, you'll recall, I talked about what to do when your meditation practice is in the toilet. Well, as it turns out, the theme of this week's talk is going to be slightly similar, just amped up a few degrees. It is what to do, how to practice, how to spiritually navigate a total and complete meltdown. I am defining here a meltdown as that moment when all your practice and all your spiritual ideals and all your therapy and all your meditation and all your koan work and all those books you've read, a meltdown moment is when all of that great big house of your spiritual pride, that house completely collapses in on itself. 100%. The whole structural foundation gives out and you're going crazy. Some people go crazy on the inside. You can see them sitting on the bus and they're going like this. And then you just see a tear coming down their face. Some people, like a guy I saw on the street yesterday, are screaming shirtless in 30-degree Fahrenheit weather at planet Earth and anyone within earshot. Some people make a fist and pop a hole in the wall. We all know these moments when you get out of control. You're spun out. So typically, and perhaps stereotypically, within Japanese Buddhism, as I understand it, there is a division between the two types of practices. There's Soto Zen, which is sometimes called like farmer Zen. It's Zen that takes a while and you're growing your practice. That's kind of the stereotype of the Soto tradition, and the stereotype of the Rinzai tradition is it's samurai Zen. It's sort of no nonsense. It's no nonsense! My point is, the Rinzai Zen tradition has a very fierce, strict, disciplined, straightforward character. And this is one approach to take when you're having a meltdown. You catch yourself and you stop. No! Don't have a meltdown. Bring yourself back to the present moment. Inhabit your body and inhabit the situation outside of your head, here in reality. It could be, I've talked in the past about the 5-second practice. Just do 5 seconds of practice when it's really, really hard. This is like 1 second practice, millisecond practice. You're just bringing yourself into the present moment as opposed to collapsing into a complete and total meltdown. So again, the Rinzai spirit might be, you're having a meltdown, there's only one way to deal with this. Don't have a meltdown, okay? Good advice. But sometimes you don't have a meltdown. Sometimes you catch it. You catch yourself as the anger arises, as the rage appears, as the overwhelming emotion begins to take hold of you like squid tentacles pulling you down into the deep. You catch it and the tentacles release, right? The anger, the smoke of the anger clears. You catch it and you defeat the meltdown. The meltdown gets down on its hands and knees and does great bows before you, the great Buddha. But you know what sometimes happens? Then you have the meltdown anyway. Have you ever had that happen? Like 20 minutes later, the meltdown happens and you're like, no, I defeated you, Meltdown. Why are you here? And now the shit is gonna come out, right? And I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. Like, are there really bodhisattvas or living Buddhas out there who just every situation that arises, they just dance with it perfectly? Every time they take the spiritual three-pointer, they hit all net. Like, are there people like that on this planet? Yeah, I used to have a guru following girlfriend, or she's more of a friend, in Los Angeles way back when. And she was kind of convinced that yes, her guru literally never got angry, never experienced lust, even for his very attractive, much younger translator that he traveled with all the time and probably shared lodging with. He didn't apparently feel lust for her. You know, people do believe this sort of thing, and we all kind of have these ideals floating around in our head about like leaders of our tradition, the classical leaders, whether it's Buddha, Jesus, Bodhidharma, Dogen, etc. We have this idea in our head that these are the perfect manifestors of the principles of our practice. But you know, I really wonder. I really wonder. I would float to the idea that maybe everybody is always still growing. Everybody. And life, the way the Dharma works, or the world, the cosmos, is like, oh boy, you know, I'm personifying now, that person down there just overcame a meltdown. Let's let them go even deeper into the heart of the problem. Let's put them in over their head. Isn't life just kind of like one situation after another where we're slightly or very greatly in over our head? This brings us to curiosity. I mean, I had a meltdown recently. In case you haven't noticed, it was very recently. It was yesterday. I had a disappointment, and I just went ape over it and really had a meltdown. I took a long walk around the city, and I'll show you some video footage of that. And I found this really interesting outdoor exhibit in the museum's quarter, and then I walked past like look at how beautiful all this is. I was here, I was melting down. And as I was walking around, I had this conversation playing in my head around this disappointment. Someone that I know and care for very deeply, a friend, had really disappointed me. And the disappointment was red and raw and raging, right? And after a while of this conflagration of self-conversation, and the shame I felt about it. There is nothing more shameful for a Rinzai Zen monk than chatter inside the head, than a person talking to them, like talking to themselves, you know? There's nothing more shameful. I mean, shameful for everybody. I remember George Carlin did a comic routine about how, like, when someone catches him talking to himself, he pretends like he was singing a song, like he'll be like, you know, nobody likes to talk to themselves. It's so shameful. But I was running around doing it. Okay, this is really embarrassing, but I'm going for it. I'm telling you. At one point, it was like, this is interesting. Curiosity. Remember I mentioned curiosity? I was like, this is interesting. Why don't you have a conversation with yourself? You'll look a little crazy if you do it without a telephone. So why don't you pretend like you're talking to someone on your phone? So I pulled out my telephone, and I'm having conversation with the person that I was disappointed with. I was having the conversation in my head with them on my phone, which was turned off, right? So around and around I went for hour after hour after hour. And you know what? Good for me. Good for me. I got a little bit curious, right? That was the approach I took, finally, to this emotion that I was feeling, this sadness and this disappointment and the hint of despair involved in all this, the regret involved in all of this. I got curious. Because that's all you can do sometimes when you're having a complete meltdown. That's all you can do when you're behaving so badly, so poorly, that the Buddha herself would turn away from you in disgust, right? Your own children would disown you. Your mother would retroactively abort you if she could see you behaving like this. When you're doing that, when you're in that mode, when you're at your worst and you can't stop yourself with all the Rinzai Zen samurai toughness in the planet, you still melt down. I have found that it's interesting to be curious. Oh, this is the meltdown activity. There is the manifestation of awareness. It's usually very, very fleeting, right? And it's not something I can force or power through. Awareness now, like that willpower and that desire for the situation to be different, that you just gotta let go of. You just gotta let go of it. You failed as a human being, okay? So be curious and just notice, and just notice, and just notice. And sometimes, and see awareness, right? And I promise you, at least my experience, is that later on, that little seed of awareness in your worst possible moment becomes like a great golden coin of dharma. It becomes a dharma dollar that you get to spend in the future. It's like a great investment. It's like buying Bitcoin when it's at its lowest point, you know? Like when you're at your lowest point, if you manifest a little bit of that Buddhist Bitcoin, ooh, my analogies today are bad, you, in the future, that moment of awareness will blossom. And it's like planting a spy in the middle of the war zone, right? So don't try and stop the meltdown if you can't stop the meltdown, but be curious within it and let your awareness manifest. You're just human. I'm just human. We're all just human, and nowhere is it written except in the books of false prophets and spiritual scammers that we have the answer once and for all to solve the problems of that challenge us and are the fabric out of which this whole human condition is woven, right? Like, as I said, I don't think there's a perfect person out there. And the perfect person then gets like perfect challenges that they absolutely cannot solve, right? And this is what happens up until the day we die. As I mentioned before in these videos, my Zen teacher used to say, I must not be enlightened yet because I'm still alive, okay? So this is my pep talk for you when you're having a meltdown. Two things you can do. You can gather all your attention into a single point and just say no to the meltdown, because there is literally no other answer. The answer is either yes or no. That's the samurai spirit. And the second way is, when that fails, if you can, take a breath in the midst of the meltdown. No, you can't do that. But there will come a moment when you do take a breath, brother and sister, and don't forget it. And there'll be a moment when you're aware, and it's a little bit funny, and you see the person who is having the meltdown. You see them. Don't forget it. Because later on, when you process the experience, you can take pride in that moment. You can hold that moment, and you can know that even in your worst possible moments, your Buddha nature, that awakening, was there. Hope this is helpful for you in your day and in your year and in your life, when certainly you will have a meltdown of some kind. if you would like to support this channel and help me from having financial meltdowns, that's a tacky segue into, you can support this channel here on patreon.com/Shozan Jack Hobner. Got a beautiful community over there of like-minded, spiritual free agents who practice Zen, or who practice witchcraft, or who are into Vedanta, or who are generally Buddhist thinkers and practitioners. Love these people. Come join us there if you want to. There's essays, there's blog posts, there's videos, and we do Sunday sitting occasionally. And I'm going to begin to, I think, build out the community aspects of my Patreon page a little bit with like a Discord server situation. So, lots of exciting things going on over there. I do offer these videos for free because I would do them even if, as I always say, you were sitting there in the room throwing rotten fruit at me and saying, stop, shut up. I would still turn on my camera and do these videos because I love to do them and I get a lot out of it and I get a lot back from people when I do them. But if you want to support this channel, you can over on Patreon, or within the description of this video, there is a PayPal link. And there you can support this channel that way, making a one-time donation or something, or you can just hit like, hit subscribe, hit the notifications button, or you can do absolutely nothing and get on with your busy day. As for me, I still have a ton of coffee energy, and so I'm going to clean. Sayonara.